Where are you from and where were you born?
Well, where I'm living at the moment is a place called Rochdale in Greater Manchester in England. But I was originally, I was born while my parents were travelling on Gandhi Circus in England, because my dad's a circus clown. And at the time, my mum was a whip-cracking, sharpshooting, Wild West cowgirl act on the circus. And apologies in advance to anyone who might hear this who's in Wales. But my dad didn't want me to be born in Wales because that would have made me Welsh. Don't know what his issue is, but so therefore he left my mum at Cosfordari base, which was the nearest place to Wales where the circus was going next, just as I was due to be born. And ultimately I ended up being born at Cosfordari base, even though I wasn't, my mum and dad aren't military or anything, although there was a link to Cosfordari base because my granddad, my dad's dad, and also his mother worked there in different roles. Hence, that's kind of how they managed to make it happen. That's where I was born in the I was going to say West Country, but it's not the West Country. That's where my mum is. It's the Midlands in England. So yeah, and then I spent the early years of my life moving around. First few years moving around from place to place each week because, well, that's what you do with the circus,
Wow, that's really interesting. So what are some of your earliest memories?
Well, some of these will sound batshit crazy, and I can only say, hey, honestly, this is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And if you do some internet research, you'll see that there is evidence out there to completely back up what I'm about to say, because it does sound stranger than fiction. Some of the earliest things that stick in my mind, and I don't know if it's I remember them clearly as and when they happened, or if it's what we call reconstructed memory, a memory that's been formed by being told about these things by my parents and other individuals who witnessed them or were involved at the time. But in any event, the things that are in there, some random ones, well, one of them is that at the age of 4, whilst on the circus, I was playing hide and seek with the kids of the other circus performers. And I hid underneath a trailer, which is a caravan, living quarters for circus people. I lived under one of them, climbed under one of them to hide. And what I didn't realise, or didn't take into account because I was too busy playing the game and I was only 4, is that I'd crawled underneath the lion tamer's big living vehicle. And underneath this, he had chained up a baby, well, I say baby, it was fairly young, puma, wild cat.
Wow.
Who proceeded to want to play with me. And I basically, this ear, my left ear, where you might be able to see if I twist my head, or I'll come in a bit closer, I've got a hearing aid on there now, but that ear's got scars down the back, and so my head and my back from where claw marks. And I was saved in the nick of time, so I'm lucky to be here, to be alive. But in the process, this ear was ripped off and had to be stuck back on. So that's one bizarre thing that happened when I was young.
Wow.
Slightly another bizarre thing. And if people are not in England, they may not have seen the adverts, but if you go on YouTube and type in PG chimps Brook Bond tea adverts or chimpanzee tea adverts, you'll get these old adverts come up that were shown on British television. And there were chimpanzees in them dressed up as humans, and then they put voices on them, and there were comedy sketches and stuff. Well, these chimps came on tour with Gandhi Circus one year, and they would be performing their act just after, well, not just after I'd finished doing something with my dad in the circus rink. At the age of 3, I became Flap, the clown, Britain's youngest paid circus clown, and started performing. And we'd just done something in the ring or on stage, because this happened more often than not when we were working in the theatre venues. We'd leave the stage to head back to the dressing room until our next bit in the show. And walking towards the stage to get ready for their bit, would be a guy called Billy Day, who was the trainer of the chimpanzees. And he would be holding the hands of the two main chimpanzees in the act. And every time he crossed paths with my dad, every day without fail, sometimes twice a day, because we'd have two shows some days, he'd say, "You all right, Billy?" And Billy Day would say to him, "You all right, Tiz?" Because he was known as Tizzy the Clown. And in that second, in that moment that they looked at each other, the chimp nearest to me would whack me around the side of the head. And now I've since been told that it was just being playful and it must have liked me because I was young and I would have probably been, not much difference in height to it, because apparently they've got enough strength that if it had whacked me around the head in a aggravated or truly violent manner, it'd probably killed me. So yeah, some strange things there, and both of them happened before I was finished being 5 years old. So that was a bit of an odd start to life.
Chimps are pretty scary, but
I love them. Look, it must be some kind of like Stockholm syndrome, but there, you can say I've got on my mug there.
Wow. You have anything with pumas on it?
No. To be honest, I'm somewhat more cautious about them.
Wow.
I came closer to death because of a puma. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. The chimps thing. My grandfather actually has a story from the fair in when he lived in Mexico. He was a musician. And
all right.
So he would perform at the fair, and he would walk past they had chimps there too, and same thing. He was walking past, chimp stuck its hand out of the cage and smacked him right on the head. And at first it was a person who did it, so he turned around ready to fight, and everybody started laughing because he realized it was a monkey.
Excellent. So at least it's not just me, eh? Yeah.
Right. So, at what age did you get into hypnotism? Is that something that you learned in the circus?
Well, no, it's a bit of an odd one, that, because there is an old tradition in the circus that everyone kind of shares how to do their acts with each other. And so that, for example, if somebody was to get an injury, somebody else in the show could cover their performance while their injury is recovering. And there was a time many years ago when circus first started out when you would have a hypnotist traveling with the circus and actually performing within the circus. But that ended many, 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 many decades ago. That was kind of in the era of Victorian spiritualism times. But there is a link going back in history between it all. So no, I mean, the way I got into hypnosis is, as I grew up, obviously I was doing the clowning, but I saw Paul Daniels, a British magician, conjurer type magician, doing magic tricks on the television. And he was massively famous in the early 80s, although he started appearing on television in the late 70s, and continued till his dying day to be massively famous in England and in various other places around the world. And I think I was 5 going on 6, and I worked on the Golden Mile in Blackpool, a seaside resort in England, helping my dad get customers inside this exhibition that was called the Paul Daniels Magic Museum, and it was exhibiting stuff of Paul Daniels, and people paid to go in, and we were on the front doing this thing called a neck guillotine illusion, where we appeared to chop through somebody's neck with a giant blade, but they were okay afterwards, obviously, because it was just a magic trick. And all the money I was getting paid, I'd spend on buying magic tricks that were on sale inside the museum, and started learning magic. And this was something that I enjoyed, and I enjoyed even more when I saw Paul Daniels on the telly. But it was also something that my dad, who was a circus clown, but also under the name The Amazing Etna, did a fire-eating, a bed of nails, a yogi, fakir, Coney Island type sideshow act. But he couldn't do magic, close-up stuff, sleight of hand, and all that technical stuff. So it was something that I could do that he couldn't. And the relevance of that was that by about the time I was about 6, my mum had decided, about 6 and a bit, going on 7, my mum had decided that she wanted me to go to a school in a more normal manner, you know, and rather than travelling from town to town, settle in one place and be normal, as it were, and then just do shows at weekends, school holidays, evenings if they were nearby, to have a normal education, as it were. And that's what was planned out. That's what happened. Unfortunately, the first school that I went to in a place called Ainsworth, the kids there were fantastic. But the teachers, especially when I suddenly started appearing in British national newspapers like the Daily Mirror and others as Britain's youngest circus clown, the teachers quickly realised that on a pro rata basis, I was getting paid more per hour than they were. And this caused what I can only now, looking back on it, as vindictiveness, jealousy, resentment, whatever, a combination of a lot. And I quite literally got bullied and victimised by the teachers in that school. And it was that bad that I kind of pretty much begged that I wanted to move school, which by the time I was 8, we did move to a place called Haywood, which is where my dad was originally born. He was still travelling with the circus and whatnot, and I was just doing, you know, holidays and weekends and whatnot where possible. Obviously, if they were too far away, I couldn't do it. And I went to a new school. And the bullying, victimisation, call it what you will, from teachers stopped immediately. The teachers at that school, St Luke's Church of England School in Haywood, I can only say positive things about them, especially the headmaster. He was just like so supportive of my interest in magic and wanting to perform magic. I couldn't have asked for more. And I thought, hooray, finally everything's wonderful. But it wasn't long before I appeared in the media again. But I didn't get any resentment or bullying or anything from the teachers, far from it. They thought it was fantastic and they were greatly supportive. But the pupils, that's when the bullying started on a daily, relentless basis from the pupils. And it didn't help, aside from the fact that they discovered I was a circus clown's son and I was, you know, doing a clowning myself. I also had ginger hair, you know. Another perfect target for bullies. And I got physically attacked, verbally attacked. And anyone who says, you know, that old cliche, sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me, well, that's just BS. It can, long-term repetition can have a negative, very negative effect. And I'm sure there's some viewers and listeners of this show who will be nodding their heads and thinking, yeah, I know what you mean. And it was that led me to resent the fact that, in my eyes, I didn't have any choice in becoming a circus clown, because it was just happened. I was born into it. So I started to blame my dad for the fact that I was getting bullied. Mentally, I was blaming my dad. So to rebel against that, I got to a point where I refused to do stick on the clown's nose and refused to be Flap the Clown anymore. However, there was a bit of an issue here. I, by now, was addicted to an audience clapping at the right times or laughing at the right times. Appreciation is a kind of a form of love and recognition, you may say. And so I still had that desire to perform, so I started doing the magic professionally. At weekends, after school, school holidays, doing paid shows. Bullying still continued, but at least I got some positivity from an audience clapping and, you know, laughing at the right time and whatnot. Although it did continue, and just before I went to secondary school, or high school as they call it in the States, I believe, so I was sort of approaching 11, 12, that sort of time. It got so much that one fall, I think they call it in the States, so wintry time, you know, where it gets darker earlier in the day, and it gets much darker much earlier in England, because you have far better weather in the States and elsewhere. I went to the busiest road, Queen's Park Road in Haywood, well, certainly one of the busiest, and lay down in the road with the intention that no one will be able to see me, and boom, everything will be over quite shortly, the end of the pain.
Wow.
And after what seemed like forever, it was probably only 30 seconds, 40 seconds, 50 seconds. You know, time can seem much longer than it is sometimes, and other times in your life you'll have had experiences where time just vanishes. Well, this seemed like I was there forever, and I got fed up, and I stood up and I started walking back to the pavement, and the moment I put my one foot onto the pavement, suddenly, whoosh, and I felt this wind, and I turned and looked, and a big articulated lorry, a big truck had just whooshed past at high speed. And in that split second, I was like, ugh. Excuse the language, I shit myself. I was like, what the hell? And yet my intention had been that that's what was going to happen. And in that second, I thought, there's got to be a better way.
Wow.
Thank God that didn't go the way it was. So then I started as Sigmund Freud, as I call him, or Sigmund Freud, as more people may recognise the name as, the psychoanalysis guy once said, that most all therapists get into it, or are still, merely doing it because they're searching for answers to their own problems. And I started on that path. I'm still doing my magic shows and stuff, but by now I'm kind of, well, I am 12 and a half, and I go to the library one day where I get magic books out of the adult library because my mum's had a word with the staff to make it possible for me to take out adult library books, even though I've only got a child's library card, because my sleight of hand was advanced and the books in the kids' library were no good for me. And I had to do a couple of tricks in the library, and hey presto, once they saw what I could do, they said, yeah, we'll let him take out adult library books. Now, where the magic books were was in a section in the Dewey book numbering system, as they're used in libraries worldwide. There's a section called Sports and Pastimes, and that's where they put the magic and conjuring books. And just to the right of those books on the shelves was the self-help and popular psychology section. And one day I'm looking at the magic books, and I suddenly turn my head and I see the spine of this book in the popular psychology section, and it says on it, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And I thought, oh, how to win friends and influence people. If I can influence people to be my friends, they're not going to hit me or bully me. So I get the book and I read it. Spoiler alert, this book by Dale Carnegie, it's a cracking book if you're an adult and you apply it with common sense. If you take it too literally and or you are too young trying to use it on children, the contents don't work, as I quickly found out. So I was somewhat disappointed that this didn't work the way I thought it would. However, I discovered the popular psychology section. And in there was another book, which, as I recall, was called something like Day by Day, I'm Getting Better and Better, or something like that. But it was by one of the founders of behaviorism psychology, not Ivan Pavlov. That was another guy who did the bell ringing with the dogs. No, it was Émile Coué, a French guy, Émile Coué, who's most famously known for the positive self-affirmation of day by day, in every way, I'm feeling better and better, or day by day, in every way, I'm getting better and better. And studies have been done on his self-affirmation and the fact that people saying this, say around a dozen times, first thing in the morning when they wake up, and they're still in what is known as the hypno-pompic state, which is that transitional period between opening your eyes and still being half asleep and actually being fully alert, conscious. And then also at night time, just before, when you've got past the yawny state, just before you transition to going sleep, that's called the hypnagogic state. And those are the times when the critical faculty, analytical area of the brain, or as I like to call it, the nightclub bouncer, the gatekeeper, kind of goes to sleep and allows you access into your unconscious mind, your subconscious mind, your imagination, call it what you will. So that new programs can be put into your personal laptop computer. And with repetition of doing this over the course of a week, a month, a year, truly life-changing occurrences can occur as long as you phrase the affirmation correctly. That's why self-affirmations don't always work for people, because there's also a real truth that you get more of what you focus on in life. And quite often people say to themselves, I don't want to be poor. I don't want to be poor anymore. I don't want to be poor anymore. And what you're really saying to your mind is that it's possible you could remain poor. You're entertaining that idea. Whereas if you were to constantly give yourself the positive affirmation of, I become richer, wealthier, and more abundant on a daily basis. It's not saying by how much, so even if it's only a little bit, which is believable to the mind, you're not saying you're going to become a millionaire overnight. That's not believable. It'll be rejected. But I become and continue to become wealthier, happier, and more financially abundant on a daily basis. Well, that's making you focused on drawing that towards you. And this is where a lot of people misunderstood things like The Secret and the law of attraction. It does work, but the reason it fails for the mass majority of people is because they're not precise enough in the affirmations they put out into the world. Some would say, but actually it's going to your personal laptop computer. That's what you need. That's what's really happening. Once you change your mind, then the external results can change as well. So, yeah, Emil Ku's book, I started using that, and it made me feel better. So it helped me deal with the bullying and the depression and stuff, which was great. But also in there, I learned a thing called the law of reversed effort, or as in NLP, they refer to it, what resists persists. You get more of what you focus on in life. So a link to that as a side thing is what I call the Yoda principle. Yoda from Star Wars, he says, do or do not, there is no try. The reason he says that is if you try to do something, you're entertaining the idea that it's possible you may fail. The word try is a negative suggestion. That's why when you see a stage hypnotist, and, when I do a stage hypnosis show, I might get people to put their hands together and suggest to them that they're locking, gluing, welding, cementing, bolting together so that they're stuck fast tight. Now just try to separate your hands, because that word try implies to the person that it's possible they may be locked. So when the mind latches onto that idea, it becomes their reality that their hands are locked together. So I learned this in the MLQA book, and I thought, I've nothing to lose. These bullies hit me every day anyway, pin me against the wall. Sod it. So the next day, with nothing to lose, when I got pinned against the wall, I immediately just said, what are you waiting for? Because normally they would pin me against the wall and then start verbally bullying me, getting their entourage to laugh. And then after a bit, just before they walked off, they'd hit me. And then they'd all walk off laughing. So I didn't allow that to happen. The moment I was getting pinned to the wall, I said, what are you waiting for? Forget all your nonsense. Why don't you just hit me now? Go on, try, do it now. Come on, try and hit me. And what happened was I saw a kind of glazed look go over the person's eyes, and this kind of, I don't know if I can do it staring at myself, but it was like, what the hell's going on? Literally, their eyes just, you could see they're trying to mentally process. It's like they were getting sensory overload. Now, I've since learned that as well as them reacting to the try suggestion, which implied it would be likely they wouldn't be able to hit me, this, because it was what they call a pattern interrupt in hypnosis and NLP, it didn't follow their daily pattern, their daily routine. Normally, pin me against the wall, verbal bullying, hit me, walk off, laughter from their entourage. No, I suddenly said, go on, try and hit me. Why don't you do it now? Totally interrupted their pattern of thought. They didn't know what was going on. It caused disorientation and confusion. And that disorientation and confusion and sensory overload, it made them feel really uncomfortable. And they let go of me, walked off with their entourage, the cronies, and just turned back and went, don't effing, they swore, I won't, don't effing come near me again. I had no intentions of doing. But they never came near me again either. And the bullying from that person stopped that day. Now, there were still people who gave the odd bit of verbal bullying, but life improved immensely. And that's when I thought, wow, there's something in this power of suggestion. And it made me feel better through the affirmation techniques, but it helped me end the physical bullying side of things. And that's when I saw an advert in a thing called Exchange and Mark magazine in England, which used to have different sections in different colours. So the green pages were home and gardening supplies. The blue pages were business opportunities. And in that section, I saw an advert that said, train to become a professional hypnotherapist and stage hypnotist. And I thought, oh, hypnotherapist, I could take the suggestion stuff to the next level. And stage hypnotist, I could perform and be getting in audiences clapping and laughter. You know, those things that make me feel good. So this is a win-win situation. I send off a stamped addressed envelope to get, because this was pre-internet days. This was 1988. I was 13 at the time, or 13 and a half, thereabouts. And the prospectus came back, and at the time, the course was going to cost £125 United Kingdom sterling, which is quite a bit of money back in 1988. But obviously I was earning because I was doing my magic show. So I had the money. I invested it. I lied about my age because it said you had to be 18, okay, to do the course. So I lied about my age. I'm sorry. I do come clean about that in a minute. So those people involved know what happened. And I did this correspondence course, took the exam, and I passed with flying colours and got awarded membership of the Association of Professional Hypnotherapists and Psychotherapists that was founded by a gentleman no longer with us called Dr. Brian Howard. But I felt guilty once I'd passed and my certification had arrived through the post because we were supposed to be 18 and I wasn't, and I was scared of getting found out. So I contacted Brian and I came clean and expected him to say, well, you know, your certification's invalid because you're not 18. And in England, there is a law that says you have to be 18 to be hypnotised. However, it turns out there's no law that says you've got to be 18 to be a hypnotist. And because of that, and also because I passed with flying colours, and because I come clean, Brian, thank you so much. He's no longer with us, but he turned around and said, let me send you a new set of certificates that reflect your correct age. And that's when I became the youngest ever member of the association. And in fact, so impressed I was by that training course and how it helped me help other people, because I started from the age of 14 in 1989 when I passed the exam, treating people for money, doing it as a profession, you know, in the evenings, at weekends, school holidays and all that. And I was helping people overcome habits, addictions, fears and phobias. Now, admittedly, in some local newspapers, I still lied about my age. But Brian knew that I was doing that because he agreed that, yeah, perception-wise, people might not believe a 14-year-old was able to help an adult. But the truth is, because the key to all therapy is merely triggering off placebo in the placebo effect in the mind and altering people's beliefs and expectancies, it doesn't matter how old the hypnotist is, as long as you follow what they say, which therefore will allow you as the individual to trigger off the things that need to be triggered off in your own mind. In other words, the hypnotist acts as a guide. Most of the work is done by you, the client, you see. And I was getting amazing results. And that's how I got it. And then at 15, a year later, I started booking comedy stage hypnosis shows. And basically now, at the age of 47, I'll be 48 this year, I've been doing this for 33, 34 years. Traveled the world. Therapy-wise, I've treated celebrity clients. I've been featured in USA Today, the big recirculated newspaper, having a therapeutic interaction with the actors Billy Crystal and Robert De Niro to help them promote their film, analyse that when it was released. I've been on TV shows galore, and it proved life-changing on all levels. Not only is it providing me with, ability to travel the world, but I've been able to help people transform their lives, entertain people, and get that applause and laughter that, felt good. And all of that's kind of condensed down over those decades into this, which is my latest book. I've got dozens of books on Amazon and other major booksellers, Jonathan Royle, but the best by far, and in fact the only one anyone ever needs to buy. Yes, I'm doing myself potentially out of it. But the point is, the ones I wrote in the past were good at the time, but then the next one became better. Well, now, forget any of the other books. The one you want to be getting is Shitnosis by Jonathan Royle, Royle. You can find it by tapping into Amazon or any major bookseller. It retails at 17 United States dollars, which is £14.70 United Kingdom sterling. It's a big book, and the reason for that is that's why I can say it's the only one you need. But it's not just a book. This is a workbook, a roadmap to success in life, because there's loads of these things in it, QR codes, which you can scan with your device, and it takes you to interactive online treatment videos. So whatever your habit, addiction, fear or phobia, whether you suffer from panic attacks, anxiety attacks, depression, health issues, chronic pain, whatever, you name it from A through to Z, there is an approach that will help you in this book to reprogram your personal laptop computer, your brain, to run in a better manner, to help you say goodbye to that used to bother you in the past, and say hello to your positive, bright future. So that you don't have to spend a fortune on seeing therapists. You can do it all safely and comfortably in the privacy of your own home.
I believe in, you have to experience certain things in order for you to gain certain wisdom.
I couldn't agree with you. I couldn't agree with you more, Stephen. And just for the record, in my teenage years, I did have a brief addiction to alcohol, cigarettes, cocaine, cannabis, gambling to a degree, which were all manifestations of the imbalances I felt within because of the fact that of all these outside things. They were escapism. It is the cliche, you drink to drown out the issue, or drugs to escape it, smoke screen, These cliches are often quite true. But I overcame all of them, all of the techniques I used and learned over the years from many different books and courses are condensed into what I call Shitnosis, helping you get over the shit in your life and get your shit together. Excuse it, the phraseology, some would say swearing. But the thing is, most human beings can relate to that. Shit happens in life sometimes, and you just need to know some techniques you can use to overcome that. And that's what it's all about.
Wow. So knowing what you know now, what do you think was the root cause of those teachers who originally were bullying you? Before you even got bullied by peers, it was teachers.
I can only imagine it was jealousy and the fact that, as I say, on a pro rata basis, they would have worked out, my hourly rate worked out to be that I was earning more money than them. Plus I was getting more attention. Perhaps they had an imbalance. You see, as human beings, and this is what I'm about to explain, is an unconscious, subconscious, personal laptop computer memory bank thought process that most people are never consciously aware of, okay? But to operate fully, properly and correctly and healthily, to not have any addictions or fears or phobias or, imbalances, we as human beings need to feel loved, wanted, needed, appreciated, cared for, cherished and valued. Now, they sound all very similar, but if you check in a dictionary, each of those is very different indeed. In fact, some of them relate to self-confidence, some to self-image, some to self-esteem, and some to self-control, aka willpower. So if there's any imbalance or lacking in the way a person feels or doesn't feel loved, wanted, needed, appreciated, cared for, cherished, and valued, then it will have an imbalance and a knock-on effect on their levels of self-confidence, self-image, self-control, and self-esteem. And if there's been any imbalance in them, it will have a knock-on effect on their levels of self-worth, self-respect, self-love, and positive selfishness. And by that, I mean like the aeroplane scenario where parents have to put their oxygen mask on first before they do their kids, so they don't pass out and are able then to put it on their several kids, you know? So positive selfishness. If there's any imbalance in any of them, it will have a knock-on effect on the person's self-identity and can cause them, all these imbalances, for them to feel as though there's a gap or a hole within. Now, some people turn to religion to fill that gap. Some people start eating too much. Some people drink to try and fill it up. Some use smoking to create a smoke screen and escape the fact that this gap or imbalance. But the best way, and the only truly sustainable long-term way, which is what this entire book, Shitnosis, is about teaching you, is techniques to enable you. And it doesn't have to have any basis in reality, you know. So what I'm about to say can even apply to someone who would prefer to be a loner and an introvert. Because feelings are imaginary. They're just within, you know. So if we can make somebody feel internally, whether it's real or imagined, but make them feel as though they're loved, wanted, needed, appreciated, cared for, cherished and valued, so that's nicely balanced out, then as a knock-on effect, they're going to end up increasing their levels of self-confidence, self-image, self-control and self-esteem, which is a knock-on positive effect, will increase their self-worth, self-respect, self-love and positive selfishness, which is a final knock-on effect, will make them feel whole again and repair their self-identity. So that they no longer need, want, crave or desire for that used to bother them in the past or that they used to be addicted to in the past. And they can move forward as that confident, happy, healthy, relaxed, individual, whole person that nature always intended them to be.
Right. Yeah, I love that you brought up the affirmations, or people saying that, you know, the affirmations don't work or doing them incorrectly, because I have heard that before, that, you know, I've heard the example of, you know, the teenage girl who doesn't feel pretty or what have you. And so she wakes up in the morning and all she says, I'm beautiful. I'm this, I'm smart, I'm important. And it's like, you know, sometimes the reason you're standing there saying those things is because, you know, you don't feel that way. And, you know, it can have a negative effect, like you waking up every day and saying the same thing. You know,
it can have a negative effect when you're only trying to do it consciously, because again, implication, it might not work. But what you consciously want to do is very much only ever going to happen if you can get past the critical faculty, analytical area of the mind, or as I call it, the nightclub bouncer that's going, no, you're not coming in, because it's protecting your unconscious, subconscious, your personal neck-top computer, the memory banks, where you're running programs automatically, okay? And if those programs that are running automatically are ones that are a result of imbalances being caused over the years, mainly when you were younger, for example, that you're not consciously aware of, the fact that consciously you want X, Y, Z to happen, it doesn't matter what effort you put in. Yes, you might have a short-term success, but eventually people relapse or it breaks down. That's why New Year's resolutions often fall apart, because what you're consciously trying to do is in conflict with the programs running in your top computer. So what you have to do is use a process to put the dormant, the critical faculty, the analytical area to one side to allow you, it's like turning a key and getting through the safe door, allowing you into the computer to delete those old negative programs and replace them with positive ones. And whilst you're there, heck, install some positive mental antivirus software for the brain, so that then you can start doing things that you wanted to do consciously, and they'll be in alignment and in harmony with the computer programs running in your brain. Hence, there's a section of the book can't get that because the light's too close, but it's called the Mind Bleach Mental Antivirus, and BLEACH, bleach, stands for buried and layered emotions and energies, altered, accepted and cleansed healthily. And it's techniques you can use that kill 100% of all known negative mind patterns. But that's just one section of this book. There's dozens of techniques, something for everyone. It's the only self-help or personal development book you'll ever need. And yes, there is a section that tells you how to structure affirmations or positive self-suggestions correctly, how to word them for maximum effect, but most importantly, how to get that doorman to go and take a coffee break so you can get past the critical faculty of the brain and into the computer control rooms, delete the negative programs, put in new positive software and install the antivirus at the same time.
That's really cool. All of that sounds really helpful, actually. I've never heard anything. I've never heard anything about hypnosis being broken down like that. So, I mean, I appreciate you for coming on and taking the time to explain it. All of that was...
Thank you so much for having me on, Stephen.
Yeah. I mean, thank you so much for explaining it so well. I was thinking to myself, I might have a hard time following or something like that. But, you know, all of what you said makes sense.
Just try a quick experiment, because hypnosis is just suggestion. It's about suggestions and stuff. I've got some rather big cards here, but I'm going to keep them towards myself. That'll become clear in a minute. I'm going to just use your imagination. That's what hypnosis is. I've got an invisible deck of cards here in this hand, and as I place it towards the screen, I'd like you to reach forward and take that deck of invisible playing cards off me.
Okay.
Well, literally take them off me.
Okay, got them right here.
Now at your end, hold them up in front of your camera. Okay, you've got a deck of cards there. So to start with, I'd like you to take that invisible deck of cards and split them into two piles. You can do it dead quickly, look, because it's purely imaginary. So that you've got in one hand all the black cards and in one hand all the red cards.
All right.
And then lift one of your hands, whichever you want, up into the air so we can see it on camera. What colour cards have you got in that hand?
Red.
Okay, excellent. So now take those red cards. You can put down the black ones that are off screen and split them into having in one hand the court cards, which I call the Jack, the Queens, the Kings, and the Aces. And in the other hand, have the number cards, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, okay?
All right.
Yeah. And now just lift one hand in the air. And what have you got in that hand? Which is it, the numbers or the pictures?
The numbers.
The numbers. Throw them over your shoulder. Let's jazz this up a bit. And now the picture cards you've got, split them so that you've got, in one hand, let's say, the Jacks and the Queens, and in the other hand, the Kings and the Aces, yeah?
All right.
Bearing in mind, we got rid of the colours much earlier on, so all we've got are the red cards here. So in one hand, you've got the red Jacks and the red Queens, and in the other hand, you've got the red Kings and the red Aces, yeah? Which of them do you prefer? The hand with the Jacks and the Queens, or the hand with the the Jacks and the Queens, or the hand with the Kings and the Aces?
Let's do the Kings and the Aces.
Okay, so like you did before, just chuck them over your shoulder.
All right.
Okay, that's the ones you want to do. Excellent. That just leaves you with the Queens and the Jacks. So put the Queens in one hand, the two red Queens in one hand, and the two red Jacks in the other. Okay, final decision for you. Which are you going to pick for me? Do you want to pick for me the red Queens or the red Jacks?
Do the red Queens.
Okay, so that'll leave you with the Jack. But pass back to me through the screen the red Queens.
Right, here you go.
Thank you very much. So I've got two of them here. I've got the Queen of Diamonds and the Queen of Hearts. That's been picked randomly by total randomness. Because at the beginning you could have remained with the blacks, but you didn't. You remained with the reds. So this whole outcome could have been entirely different. In a moment, whichever one of these you name, the Queen of Hearts or the Queen of Diamonds, is exactly your final choice. It's your final choice for you, but also your final choice for me. Because I made a prediction before, and hopefully we may have a match. So, Do you think that I predicted the Queen of Hearts or the Queen of Diamonds, or possibly none of them? Queen of Hearts or Queen of Diamonds, your final choice. Which do you want?
Queen of Diamonds.
The Queen of Diamonds, completely free choice, yeah? All along you've had a free choice, and we end up with Queen of Diamonds. Here's the interesting thing. Beforehand, I placed one card, and I know it's shiny, but I placed one card the other way, and the one queen that I placed the other way was the Queen of Diamonds. And I was really confident that through subliminal suggestion, I'd get you to pick that. So confident I was that I gave it a completely different colour back to the net. And just to prove that, you know, there's no trickery or pokery, as it were, at the end, that I really did influence you to choose that. That one's blank, that one's blank, and that one's blank as well.
Wow, that's really cool.
Suggestion can be used to guide people to make choices. So you never had a free choice. Suggestion, we guide you, but you can do the same thing with your own mind. So, but you've got to get past, we all have that nightclub bouncer in the brain that's stopping us. Some people know that nightclub bouncer better as that little voice inside their head that tells them they're not good enough. Or that little voice inside their head that says, why are you doing that? You can't do that. Well, in this book, Shitnosis, we teach you techniques where you can change that voice in your head so that it sounds ridiculous and makes you laugh when it tries to say negative things to you, and so that it becomes louder, clearer, and more positive when it's saying good, positive things to you. And of course, by reprogramming the brain and the computer programs, you can make it so the vast majority of the time, it only says good things to you that help you be happier, more relaxed, and to achieve more in life.
Wow. So how does the media use this suggestion? You talked about that on your website. Yeah, good question. Just before we get close to the end, the media is using suggestion and manipulation all the time to influence and control people to do what the governments and powers that be want to have happen. And the way they do this is through instilling fear, false evidence against reality. In other words, lying to you, using propaganda. And there's an old saying in the media, if it bleeds, it leads. This means the more brutal, shocking, emotionally upsetting the story is, the more likely it is to make the front page news and bigger headlines. This is because it sells more of the papers for them, but also it's because it instills a state of confusion and disorientation and fear into the mass populace. And when the mass populace is thinking, oh my God, and is in a kind of sense of trauma, it is so focused on that and trying to cope with everyday life that it becomes blind to all the decisions that's being made around them by the powers that be to take away their freedoms or make them act in certain manners. And this is something that people can find out more about in my documentary, Extreme Danger, Extreme Hypnosis, which they can watch free of charge. You used to have to pay for it on Amazon Prime, but we've now made it free of charge on my Celebrity Hypnotist YouTube channel. Just go there and type in Extreme Danger, Extreme Hypnosis on my Celebrity Hypnotist YouTube channel, and you can watch that for free, and it'll explain to you what goes on, how they use it to manipulate you. And once you know that, you'll be able to kind of inoculate yourself, protect yourself against it happening, because you'll know what's going on. Well, yeah, I think that's probably one of the reasons I like to stay away from the daily news, you know, because I've honestly, it's the word they use is fear mongering. You know, they want the ratings, right? So if they tell you something's wrong, you know, this is what's happening, and tune in at 4 we'll tell you the solution, stuff like that. And you
Precisely.
know, it's I mean, it can be dangerous, you know. So discord among the community, because one news channel is saying one thing, another one's saying the other, and unfortunately, we have biased companies competing against each other for the ratings, for the population to listen to what they're saying. And you know, it's so harmful to our society.
The first and second chapter of my Shitnosis book, the second one in particular, picture of me there with a giant poo on my head. And that's because it's called How Your Head Got So Full of Shit, plus Why Your Life Is Sometimes Shit. And in there, we cover how the media and fear-mongering grind people down and cause them stress, depression, anxiety, SAD, stress, anger, depression, makes them sad, and what you can do to turn that around so that you're happier in life and overcome stress and all the other issues.
Jonathan, thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for the
Thank you, Stephen.
thank you for the magic trick.
Thank you.
Likewise.
When this goes live, please do tag me and I'll share it all around social media far and wide. And anyone watching this, please do like this, share it for Stephen. He's a great host. It's a great show. Share it far and wide, and because this can help other people as well.
Definitely. That's exactly why I want to continue doing this. So thank you so much. Definitely will tag you. Thank you so much for your time, and I will definitely try to.
It's been a pleasure.
Try to learn some of that, some of those magic tricks. That was really cool.
And don't forget, it's time to get over the shit in your life. Shitnosis by Jonathan Royle. Oh, one other thing. There's a free video that will help people. It goes more into what the imbalances are. A 4-hour free video at ultimatehypnosiscourse.com.
All right.